If you want to scale, you can't continue to do it all yourself, and you've got to find the right people that complement you and and invite those people to challenge you.
Today we have Jeff Rodgers, the Chief Commercial Officer at Monetized 360. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you, Ryan. It's really nice to be here.
Welcome. Hey, I'm interested, Jeff. Tell us about your business.
Sure, excellent. Again, thank you for having me on your podcast today. I work as the Chief Commercial Officer at Monetized 360. We're a pre-Series A company, but what we do is we provide pricing and billing solutions for companies with really complex business or billing models. So an example of a complex pricing model might be usage-based pricing, where you have tiers, you have various hierarchies, and lots of dimensions on which you price. An example of a complex billing model might be a network billing, for example, where you have a client, but you need to split off credit for that billing event to multiple entities. So, as I mentioned, we're a pre-Series A company, but we have a really impressive list of current customers, and we're working with some very large companies and are already at revenue at this point.
Yeah, fantastic. And how did you get started in that?
So I initially started my career, Ryan, as a financial analyst. So graduated with a degree in finance, and I remember calling my father at one point about a year into it and said, "Dad, is it normal to not like going to work?" He said, "Maybe at my age, son, but not at yours. You've got to find something new to do." So I made a transition to sales, first off into semiconductor sales, and then into enterprise software sales, and I've been in that for most of my career as an individual contributor, and then as a sales leader over time.
Yeah, nice. And so then, where do you think you bring the most value to the marketplace, Jeff?
So I think a couple things. Number one, I think I've developed a talent for really understanding the points of influence in complex scenarios. And then from that, being able to build a repeatable sales model based on what we've learned in those complex engagements. The second thing is I'm really motivated to building and scaling very collaborative sales teams. So there's not much more that motivates me than seeing individuals on a team working together and being the best at their craft that they can be. So again, a real motivator for me, and that's what keeps me doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, I love that. That's really good. And so then what had to change in you that took you from, hating your work through to, now, having a level of success, reaching the C-suite, what had to change in you for that to happen?
So I think there was a few things. Um, Number one, I had to make the pivot from being a solid sales performer as an individual contributor to really enabling others to be the best at their craft, which meant really, in some cases, playing a background and supportive role. So that came to me over time, and I'm glad I made that change. Second, being able to act on and invite contrarian opinions. We all have blind spots, and I think it's important that we understand what those are, build a culture of openness and safety, and invite those disparate and contrarian opinions. Um, I'm thinking back to a role where I stepped in leading a sales team, and I started out with that mantra of asking them, I want a contrarian opinion. And they kind of smile at me, and I think they were just kind of waiting to see what happened. But after I'd asked enough times and after they had seen that some of their ideas were being implemented, it really opened up the culture and we were able to achieve some great things.
Yeah,
I think
great.
thirdly, I think everybody suffers to a certain extent from imposter syndrome. So being able to keep that in check, again, that leads back to being open and collaborative with your team. I think those three things are stuff that items that I've been working through.
Yeah, great. And the imposter syndrome is actually something that comes up a fair bit, actually, in some of our conversations, because people are stepping as they grow into new roles, and it's things that they haven't experienced before necessarily, that is fairly new to them, and that they're not personally at that level yet. What are some things that you did to kind of overcome that imposter syndrome?
So first of all, I think acknowledgement is the first step. Uh, Second of all, I think finding a mentor has been really a crucial part of getting through that and bouncing ideas off and building that confidence. And third, I just think approaching your role with a sense of humility and being able to admit when maybe you're in uncharted waters. People pitch in; they want you to be successful ultimately. So I think just by doing those items, you're able to get through it.
Yeah, that is really good. So then, with some of this experience in mind, can you give us one or two insights that have given you the biggest and most dramatic, points of leverage of growth through, for the businesses that you've been involved in?
Sure, sure. So I think business and sales is evolving significantly and very quickly. About a couple of years ago, I heard a statistic that a buyer goes through about 70% of their journey before they actually reach out to a sales team. And then you can add another statistic on top of that that only about 17% of buyers actually reach out to sales as part of their early research. So this is something I think about all the time because it shapes the kind of people that we hire. It shapes our demand gen engine and shapes how we go to market. So once you realize that, I think you're on your way. The second thing is at the end of the day, it's all about ROI, all about return on investment. And I've learned that if you can't justify an ROI and show your work and how you do it, you're not going to be successful because ultimately, in a complex sales engagement, somebody's going to be asking for those numbers. And I make it a point to make sure we're building out that ROI early and often. And in the early stages of an engagement, we don't have it right, but we work with our customers to collaborate to come up with that ROI model because it's good for them to get the deal approved, and it's good for us to make sure we're investing in the right areas.
Yeah, that's really good. And so really taking that collaborative partnership approach to get those results rather than, trying to be, I guess, all things to all people and, trying to say, hey, look, we have the perfect solution and that's it.
Correct. Exactly.
Yeah, I like that. And so what's been the most challenging part of growing the business?
So you just really led me into that when you were talking about not being all things to all people. So I think number one is really identifying your ideal customer profile and sticking to it, and not getting distracted by shiny new objects, as you sort of described them. And I don't have to look any further back than a meeting I had this afternoon with our CTO, where an opportunity presented itself, but required us to go a little bit off piste, if you will, from a custom development perspective. And we said, you know what? I don't think this is an engagement we want to take on right now. Maybe down the road we will, but I think we've got some other things we need to focus on. So really, I think understanding what your ICP is and having a maniacal focus on that is really important.
Yeah, that's
That,
good.
yeah. Did you have a question?
No, no, after you.
Okay. Okay, great. And I think the second aspect is hiring the right people at the right time. Um, and what I've seen is that sometimes sales teams scale too early. And that's not good for the company, for the market, or the employees because that good work, that foundational work of building an ICP, uh, building out a set of happy, referenceable customers, and building out that revenue engine, that demand gen, and having that enablement is absolutely required to make a sales team successful.
Yeah, I like that because my next question was going to be when is it a good time to actually build out, that sales team? Can you give some advice, some further advice on kind of when is a good time for that, for a manager to make that decision around, great, let's scale now.
So great. And I'm actually facing that right now in what we're doing. So I think if you look at sort of the evolution of a company, the first dozen or so customers are friend and family type customers. I think once you've identified that ICP, you have a reasonably good idea about it, and you're starting to build a repeatable sales model. plus you've got that enablement piece behind it, you can start adding people. And my general recipe is to add, very senior, high EQ regional sales directors or VPs that can carry a bag for a short period of time and then build out the team underneath them. So
Mm,
that's been a model that I've used with some success.
yeah. And having that ICP is actually really, really important. And actually, Jeff, could you let our listeners know what ICP stands for, please?
Oh, sure. Ideal customer profile.
Yep.
So the market, the person you want to go after, and not only the persona and the company and the business problem, but also the right timing to make sure they're actually in market. They're actually acknowledge they have a problem and are looking for a solution.
Yeah, and it's working out not just demographically but psychographically. What's going on in their mind, what's going on in their emotions, what their buying triggers are. Those sorts of things at whatever level, whether it's enterprise level or small business level. There are certain psychological factors that impact on that, aren't there?
Sure. And there's also this concept of what I call normalized pain, where companies have a problem, they acknowledge it's a problem, but the fear of the unknown of doing something is just far greater than the desire to change. So being able to sort of work your way through that with the customer and make sure it's on their priorities, and then I'm going back to that ROI discussion we had earlier, uh, really makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's great. And so then, Jeff, what advice would you give to a business owner or CEO who really wants to break through to their next level?
Sure. Three points. So number one, delegate, delegate, delegate. If you want to scale, you can't continue to do it all yourself, and you've got to find the right people that complement you and and invite those people to challenge you. I think those are two things I do for sure. Number three, focus on customer success. The reason I say that is that if you look at a sales funnel and value creation, it's sort of a bow tie where the thin part of the bow tie is where the deal actually happens. Everything up to that point is pretty much a loss leader. The cost of customer acquisition can be a lot higher than the revenue you make off of that initial 1 year deal or whatnot. Where you convert that to money is really on the back end, on the deployment and the value realization. And what that really mandates is a very strong customer success organization. That's where you get a force multiplier of better margins plus cross sell and upsell opportunities. I'm a firm believer in that. So that's a team that we're going to be building out in the very near term here to really help drive and fuel our growth.
And I love the ability to get that leverage on the back end because, I mean, all studies everywhere show that it's more expensive to acquire a customer than it is to keep a happy customer. So, and most of our attention as business owners, as CEOs, tends to be on the customer acquisition when we move into a growth phase rather than on a customer retention phase or a customer back end multiplication phase.
Correct, correct. And churn is the killer because, as I mentioned, you go through the effort of signing up a customer and they leave you after a year, you've lost money on that because the cost of acquiring that customer is much higher than the revenue you got in that specific term. So watch churn. That's a key metric or indicator that people should watch, especially in a SaaS business.
Yeah, that's really good. And so, Jeff, if you could go back 5 years and give your slightly younger self a bit of advice, what would that be?
Uh, sure, sure. I think the value of building a network and joining a professional organization that is either aligned with your company or your career area is super important. And it's important for a few reasons. Number one, it just provides a great networking opportunity for you to meet like minded people, and you never know where those relationships might develop from a career perspective. Second of all, this network or group of folks can really be a resource for you as you encounter challenges in your own business. And while you may have not seen it all, if you add up all the people you know and work with, they've probably seen it all. So for me personally, about 2 years ago, I joined a professional sales organization called Pavilion. It used to be called Revenue Collective. They rebranded to Pavilion. And this has been just a complete boom for me in terms of meeting people, um, helping build out complex compensation models, when's the right time to scale, et cetera. I've gotten several mentors through that organization. I mentor a few people myself, which is also a big learning experience for me. And it's enriched me. It's enriched my company and the teams that I work with. Also enriched my family as well. So it's been a win all the way around. That'd probably
Fantastic.
be the number one suggestion.
Yeah, great, great. And then finally, Jeff, who can you best help? And if they want to get in touch, how can they reach out to you?
Sure, sure. So if you're a company in the SaaS space or financial services, insurance space, even medical space, and you have very complex pricing or billing methodologies, as I discussed up front, please reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm, uh, I'm on LinkedIn and active there, and would really like to see if we can help you out.
Mm, thanks, Jeff. That's great. We really appreciate you coming on the show and giving us the value that you have.
Great. I'm really appreciative of the opportunity, and look forward to talking to you again.
Thanks, Jeff.
Excellent.